Today my talk is called, You Are Not a Drop in the Ocean, You Are the Entire Ocean in a Drop, which is a Rumi saying. And I love this idea because I think, so many times when we're talking about oneness, many of us see it as that each one of us a piece of that oneness, or a piece of the puzzle. But when you realize that we are each individually the entire ocean, and the piece, that drop, is the separation. We are all of it, all collectively. And so when you really think of the vastness of that, you can start to see that there's probably many things, many options to be able to heal different aspects of our life that we haven't really grasped onto or ever heard or learned that we could actually use to bring wholeness or happiness or peace into our lives. We're here as spiritual beings, and human beings second. And yet the human experience is so strong that it can distract us, that we have a greater ability to heal things in our life than we really realize. And so the world will counsel us, our friends will counsel us, people in the human experience will counsel us from a limited view that our dictates and needs and demands will be met by things of the world. And the world meaning the financial world, the economic world, the what we own world, the cars, the houses, the man, all these things are outside of ourselves. And what we don't realize, that the spiritual being attracts what we actually need in the human world. When we work from the spiritual being and work on that spiritual being first, then that powerful being goes out and can create everything that we need to really survive and thrive and really be happy in life. We are heading into a time of oneness. And so if you really think about it, we're at a time we're seeing such turbulence out in the world, and we need to start looking at what we're bringing to the world in our own personal vibration. If we're the entire ocean, what are we bringing to the consciousness of humanity? What are we doing to take care of our environment? How are we going to ascend this planet and heal it if we're still looking at the little nitpicky things that are no longer serving us and enjoying the gossip conversations around it? When we're on a spiritual path, we do start to shut out the world more, and we start to get quieter. We realize that it's not as fun to gossip about other people or their challenges or the difficulties, because we realize that we're really here to heal those challenges within ourselves. Whatever we're projecting in other people is something that is actually in us. So gosh, we don't want to do that, because we don't want to bring the law of attraction of those things into our life. So I want to ask a question. We've all been on this journey, and if you're sitting here, there's no coincidences today that you'll be here witnessing a conversation I'll be having with you about the shadow work. The part of us that is there that we might not actually realize is there, and is held in our subconscious mind or in our cell memory, or as Eckhart Tolle would refer to as the pain body. It's a body that we don't really realize is there, but is directing and creating a lot of what we're experiencing in this world, because it hasn't been recognized. It hasn't been given the attention it needs so that it can dissolve and disappear. So I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he's a numerologist, and we were talking about numbers and, the 1 through 9 year cycle, and I'm in a 1 year right now if you're a numerology person. And we were discussing that, and we were talking about why is it that some people come into this world and spend their life putting up smoke screens around themselves so that they never, ever really grow. They just kind of live the same repetition of the same bad habits or the same bad consciousness that they're holding, and they just kind of disappear in the worldly things that kind of keep us from feeling. They numb themselves so that they don't have to feel the very things that actually are there that need to be unearthed so that they can actually come into their divine unfoldment. And then there's the people that you've met that are the spiritual brave riders. They understand that those very things that they want to numb out are actually the key to their entire life. That to actually turn and face the thing that is sitting there, scaring you, and you don't want to face it, that to turn and face it just by turning and facing it immediately starts to diminish its power and its voice in your life. So why do some people wake up in a lifetime, and why do some not wake up in a lifetime? And most of us, even in our family cycles, in the extended family, we all have a little bit of all that. And we can witness the different people that chose to wake up versus not waking up. And neither one is wrong or right. We're just merely observing that we're here in a spiritual center to grow our spiritual selves. We're not here to judge others. It's just to recognize from the contrast, from the polarity, we learn a lot about our spiritual beings by seeing what darkness can create and what lightness can create, so that we stay motivated and staying in our spiritual practice to stay more in the center of life. In this book called You Are Not Crazy, You Are Just Waking Up, it says it this way. The soul transformation can be described as a two-step process, dismantling and then rebuilding. It's as though your psyche is a chalice or a cup that needs to be emptied of old toxic materials so it can be refilled with the fresh waters of life, or new opportunities to live life with more love, peace, and purpose. In other words, it's letting your old self die so that your new self can be born. It's as though your psyche is a chalice or a cup that needs to be emptied of old toxic materials so it can be refilled with the fresh waters of life. There's a common theme that's going on, and I say that from the type of counseling sessions I've had in the last few weeks. From a volunteer party that we put on for all the people that volunteer for this church and for our staff this last Friday, we had a gala of music and wine and food, and each person that I talk to, I can tell that there's a rumbling going on in people's lives. It's a rumbling, there's being a call. It's exciting, but it's scary because things are changing and nobody's is exempted of it, right? So, I mean, if you're feeling exempted of that, I bless you and I'm happy that you are. But there's a lot of people that aren't feeling that exemption. They're feeling that turbulence and understanding that our season of change is coming. Our foundations are being shaken because we need to wake up, right? That shaking of the foundation is saying it's time to start looking at the stuff that's keeping you living small and powerlessly, living in your limited belief systems and living from a view that you're not whole, that you're not made perfect in the image of God. So my friend Daniel, who's a numerologist, has been talking to me last year. He said, you know that you're in a 9-year this year. And a 9-year is the completion of a 9-year cycle. And so everything that you've learned through the 9-year kind of closes up and you kind of tie it up and get ready to start the new 9-year cycle in the first year. And I was feeling really stoked about the first year because the 9th year, last year, you guys all witnessed, it's just been a lot of change and a lot of hardship and a lot of just facing things that needed to be closed up in that 9-year cycle. And I thought I was just going to jump into the 1 year and it's going to be all like puppy dogs and balloons. And that's just not simply been the case. So I'm going to Daniel, like, you've been like, well, you're almost at the 1 year. You're almost at the 1 year. And I'm like, sweet, I'm almost at the 1 year. It's going to be easy then. And it's not been easy. And I realized after talking with him, he said, but the 1 year is you holding yourself accountable for everything that you learned about what you want to do and what you do not want to do, so that you keep it tied up back there and you don't use any of these things that you no longer want to bring to this next 9 years, because you'll actually bring that whole cycle to this next set of 9 years. If I don't complete it in the first year, I have to do it new. So that's things like standing up for myself. I have a tendency to not like conflict at all. speaking up and knowing that it's from a heart-centered place and it's not ego, and that I allow myself to speak my truth as a woman, as a powerful woman on this planet. I want to be that, and I'm tired of sitting back and trying to be the peacemaker all the time and not upset men. I love men. I have the most powerful father in the world, but he's always let me speak freely. That's never been an issue. It's other people on this planet. So, and that's not my husband either. So, yes. I will explain this in a minute. Anywho, the truth is it's holding yourself accountable that I can't live small anymore. Those things that I've learned, why would I want to bring that into this next 9-year cycle? Because I want to do the same thing with this 9-year cycle, and then the next one's I'm more powerful, more powerful, more powerful. That's what I came to this planet to do, and that's what we all came here to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Q process that's going to happen this Saturday, and an experience I had with Dr. Jane Simmons, who leads this class that's coming here this Saturday. I took a class when I was going to school at Unity Village, and it was the most impactful class that I took, and it was also on the shadow work. That was before the Q process was written, and it's called The Eye of the Storm. And at the time, that class was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was attending a week of school at Unity Village. I did schooling here in Boulder, and then I'd go back there for testing and take classes. And so when I went back for this Eye of the Storm, I was just separated from a 9-year marriage, and it was heading into divorce, and I had 2 young children. And it was the first time I had made a decision for my own happiness and my own health. I had to leave this marriage. It was too dark. It was too hard. It was just not anything that I was ever reflected in my childhood or the love that I was taught to give in this world and to be reflected back. It had a lot of controlling nature and all those type of things. So, but when I'm like there for this class, we're working through each day about what is coming up for us. So as we're reading this book and we're working with each other, and I was put in a group with a wonderful other minister, Russ Sorensen, who was a minister in Chicago at the time, and 2 other women, and we were working our stories out and sharing and working on this book on how we could forgive ourselves and allow ourselves to forgive others and all that stuff. So what was coming up for me and I realized was that I had such complete and utter guilt. Like complete and utter guilt that I had abandoned this person that I had committed to stay with for the rest of my life. I had complete and utter guilt that I now set my children up to be raised in a household that was going to be in 2 different households. I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders because somehow I thought I was the only one that was responsible for this marriage, and now I'm doing all this work and I'm starting to see something different about it. And so I remember at one point I was sitting in this group, and we were in different areas around the bookstore area, if you guys have been to Unity Village, and we finally, I'm sharing what I'm feeling, and I'm really, upset about it, and I hit the spot that finally I got it. I got how much I had lost my power and my belief in myself and the whole journey of falling apart in it. And when we got to this point, I felt like I was going to just start crying hysterically. But instead, this rumble of laughter started to come out of me that was so innate and tribal and drumming. I mean, it was the laughter, it felt so good, and it was so bizarre, and then they were laughing with me, and before we knew it, the 4 of us were just howling, laughing. I mean, bringing this reality of this mirror of, whoa, how did I lose it so much that it could have gotten this bad. And so, in the end, how they worked it with and I did a lot of crying too, but there was something so healing about this laughing moment that we had together. The end of the week, everybody worked out a script so that they could be the vision of the person that they were still holding this dark, unhealed area of their life. So Russ, who stands 6'8", he's a big, tall cowboy, handsome, big, energied guy, such a loving soul, and he and I worked out a script where we were going to sit on two ends of this table with paper blocks. They looked like actual blocks built up so we couldn't see each other. And we had to act it out for our class, which was like 50 people, and everybody was going to do these type of skits for 2 days to share and have to have this healing experience in front of each other. And so I sit down, and the whole script is for me to like be asking things like, why didn't you want to provide for us? Like, why didn't you love me enough to want to like take care of us so that it wasn't so stressful that I'm like worrying where the money's going to come from to like put diapers on our kids? Why didn't that affect you the way it affected me? And on the other side of the blocks, Russ is just sitting there with a paper, just reading it and ignoring me while I'm asking very important questions. Don't you feel like you're like half responsible for the children that we had here? Why is it that I feel like I'm 100% responsible for these children and feel alone in everything that we have to provide for them? And then eventually, I do these lists of things, and Russ finally like pulls the paper down and he looks at me and he says, "Just be nice, Syntysche. Just be nice." Because that was an experience I had. Just be nice meant be quiet. Don't talk about your actual real feelings about how much our life has fallen apart here. Just be nice. And that's where we were going to end it to get this experience of it. But apparently Russ had decided he was going to do something very different because he was on a spiritual path, and he saw that I needed a major healing about this situation. So somebody stands up all of a sudden and starts pulling the blocks that are separating us. And he looks at me, and he says to me, "I am so sorry. I didn't have the ability to be there for you. But I didn't have the ability to be there for me. So how would I have the ability to be there for you? I am so sorry that I couldn't protect you. But I didn't know how to protect myself. So how would I know how to protect you? I'm proud of you. And I thank you for giving us everything that you are. I release you. And I understand that we played an important part in each other's lives up till now. I want you to be free. And I want you to discover how special you are in this world." While he's speaking these words to me across this table, I am 100% seeing my ex-husband's face. And I am crying. And I am receiving. And I am allowing myself to feel the compassion and the forgiveness that I need to feel, not only towards him, but towards myself for allowing myself to be treated so poorly. I'm crying because I know that what this Russ is saying is the highest potential that was in my ex-husband, that he was not able to do because he didn't develop that spiritual self. He leaned on the ego instead of the heart. And so this is what makes the shadow work so, so powerful. In the eye of the storm, it says it this way: "The soul seeks to move one into those areas of life where full potential has yet to be discovered. Imagine that you are overly dependent upon another person as a source of approval or appreciation. This dependency would naturally block the knowing of your own innate worth. However, when you are ready to take greater ownership of the possibilities that live within you, circumstances may arise to change the relationship. Relationship changes that threaten your sense of security are almost always resisted. Yet your soul and the souls of those who journey with you have conspired to help you gain freedom." They have come to help you gain freedom. This issue or this lack of self-love could have very much been something much more than just this lifetime. This could have been carried for many lifetimes. And it was time for it to be healed. In other words, the shadow isn't just the wounded part of us, but it is also the path towards a more authentic and fulfilling life. In order to repair, heal, and grow on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level, we need to practice shadow work. Because shadow work is a practice that helps us become whole again. Shadow work helps us become whole again. You see, we don't want to attract what we don't want in our lives. But we so often do attract what we don't want in our lives because we're unwilling to look back at the monster that's sitting here, that's calling for your attention, to work with it and heal it within yourself. So therefore, it has no living entity through you. It has no power to dictate or change how your life is. If this shadow is still sitting here, and it's still biting at you, and it's still scaring you, and you're doing everything to avoid it and not want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. It's too scary. Then you can use all the affirmations in the world. You can use all the visualizations in the world to try to bring the law of attraction to you, to bring the abundance, the love, the things that you need. But the thing is this very powerful thing is actually putting it out there for you. And so you're wondering why you're so unlucky, but everybody else is lucky. You're attracting the very thing that's sitting inside that shadow. That shadow has so much more power when it's not looked upon and unearthed and witnessed. The mere turning around and going, oh, hello. Just looking at it. It literally starts to diminish without even giving it meaning or giving it a story. It's the avoiding of it that makes it roar and grow. So that's what this whole process is about. And people say, well, I don't know if I really want to go do this on Saturday because it's scary. And the one thing that I can tell you about this process, and like Shad said, it will transform your life, and you will be so glad you did it. But everybody that's going there is willing to face their shadows. There's not anybody sitting there observing you facing your shadow while they're not deeply involved with their own shadow, so they're not noticing the breakthroughs or the breakdowns you're having to break through, right? Because I don't remember anything of anybody else's breakdown and breakthrough. I remember there's a lot of people crying, and there's a lot of people counseling and mirroring and doing all that stuff. But I was in there to heal my shadow. And it's a beautiful thing to do that with like-minded friends. Many of us within our shadows have issues from the fact that they came from when we were really young. It's usually happened when we didn't really have a say about what we feel or do about it. It became a cell memory before we even had the language to protect ourselves from something that happened in early childhood, early development. And so the little things that locked itself in, you might even notice that it's something that really wasn't that big of a deal, but for the rest of your life, you never did public speaking because something happened, or you never did this because something happened. You didn't realize how little of a thing it was, and if you could just face it, you could actually finally live in your unfoldment and blow your mind how powerful you are just because you put this thing to rest, right? And so I was raised in a family that was very much, inspiring, and we were raised to really go big or go home. I mean, if you're going to go for something, you don't just half-ass it. I couldn't think of a better word to use. I know there's a better way to say that, but I couldn't right at the minute. That's probably how it would have been worded in my house, and that's why I couldn't get anything else. You don't have anything about anything. You go for it with everything that you are. And if you're going to go after it with everything that you are. Practice, do what you ever. And if you are going to get pie in your face, you're going to get pie in your face in a way that you are going to blow people's minds. You are going to do it so terribly that people are like, whoa. And you're going to own it. Because you're going to grow the strength that you are powerful. Now, we all make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes in front of people, so that way you're not too scared to try new things and do amazing things in this world. I have this insert from a book that I read by Amy Schumer, who's a famous comedian, and it's called The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo. This is not a spiritual book. I really don't want you to read it and think, oh my God, Syntysche read this book. Oh my goodness. However, there's a part in it that I really liked, and I wanted to share it with you. It's about her bat mitzvah and how she had done so much preparation to learn the Hebrew. And at a young age of 13, she learned that Hebrew and also turned it into music and decided she was going to sing it for everybody. Clearly, she had a very rambunctious spirit at an early age. And she wanted to recite it, and she wanted to do with singing. And what the bat mitzvah is a rite of passage. It's a ceremony representing the coming of age. And it's about the becoming a woman, in the Jewish religion. And she goes on to say it this way. I didn't care what I was singing. I just wanted to blow everyone's socks off. I belted out the last couple of lines of my portion. Move over, cast a fiddler on the roof, your jobs are all in jeopardy. And on my final note, I let loose with all my might. That was when my dream turned into my nightmare. My voice cracked. My heart started to pound too quickly, and I could feel my face turning into a beat the way it loved to. Silence filled the room, and I thought I might cry. Then came the first laugh, then another, and the rest. I looked out at the people in the seats, and they were all laughing and looking at me with adoration, waiting to see how I'd react. I realized that even though it was an accident, I made everyone happy, and I wanted everyone to know that it was okay to laugh, so I joined in. I laughed hard. I was laughing at myself. We were all laughing together, a real laugh that went on for a while. I'm pretty sure that's why I officially became a woman that day. Not because of the ancient ceremony. No, I became a woman that day because I turned a solemn, quiet room into a place filled with unexpected laughter. I became a woman because I did for the first time what I was supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. What I love about this is that the exact opposite could have happened about that situation. In that teetering moment where the laughter started, are you going to let this burn you and break you down to a level? Even at 13 years old, but 13 years old, that's a really hard age, by the way. Are you going to let this empower you and go, oh, hell yeah, I went for it? Or are you going to let this thing that's going to make you live small and careful and walk within the lines and never step out into the amazing, the beauty, the power that lives within you? Are you going to let this be the broken story? Is this what's going to make you be the victim in this world? So therefore you never live and know the power of God expressing through you. It's always a choice. And so many people live with a story that something happened when they were young. And they've lived small because they're afraid that could happen again. When we decided to learn and grow by incarnating into the world of humanity, God gave us total free will to live the experiment in any way we chose and to find for ourselves the way back home. The way back home. All this free will that we're given to find ourselves on our way back to the powerful knowing that we are made in the image and likeness of God. We were not made broken. We were not made to be abused. We were not made to be weak or limited in our thinking. We were made perfect in the image and likeness of God. And we are here to claim that divinity with that greater power. And these difficult things have shown up to test us. Are you going to let it empower you and make you proud of yourself? Or are you going to let it destroy you and never really know the power that lives within you? So what we harbor in our mind, the limitation that we feel in this world, that is what we're calling more of into our lives. What we believe is true is what we're calling into our lives. So what are you speaking to this universe about yourself? Is it I'm divine in nature? Or I'm scared and I want to hide? I'm going to share a little funny story. I need this prop for the story because this is funny, because it's just a direct, like, a consciousness thing. So when I was in my early 20s, I sang with a woman that we toured to Santa Fe, and we did some touring together, and I was her, like, backup singer on her CDs at the time. And she had this belief that the sound guy could never get the microphone correct for her. Like, the reverb was never on when my reverb was, like, really sounding nice, or the mic would never turn on when she just believed that, like, the microphones were out to get her. It was like just a constant affirmation that there was some sort of conspiracy theory behind microphones and her voice versus the microphones that I was given at every given venue. And so she would talk to this, and I would watch how this would literally have an immediate and grand impact in her life all the time. And it became really funny to me to watch how instantaneous this universe will show you your lazy thinking and what you will be saying and how it will come back to you in vibration. So this one time, we were in Santa Fe, and she had her guitar, and she's playing. We'd done our entire sound check. The entire sound check went great. The people are there, and now we're starting to sing this song. And I would start it. I had my tambourine, and she had her guitar. She's playing. She has the mic here. I have my mic here. I started the song, and then she'd have to enter with her backup. So I'm singing. She starts to sing, and the second she starts to sing, and we've got a nice crowd that day, the mic starts going like this. And then the mic just starts dropping down like this. It just starts to fall like that. And then the thing slips out like this. It falls to the ground. But it was only at the moment when it got to here. I was done for. I'd been on tour with her for a week. I had it up to here, and I just started laughing. I could not stop laughing. I could feel spirit going, ha, 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 like this. So it's fun to see the humor of, the universe, because the universe has a very silly sense of humor. So I want to leave you with this quote from the Bible, and it says it this way in Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer, in supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer, in supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Everything in gratitude,